Well, good morning and welcome to the Internet Business Blueprint podcast. This is James Holmes, your host, and I'm here every weekday, Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. And our subject here is home-based businesses that are primarily developed and promoted and built online. Certainly, I'll teach a lot of concepts regarding traditional methods. Certainly, if you're working in a network marketing business specifically, there's some specific things that are best done in terms of particularly launching your business that are offline in known markets. But certainly, what you'll discover, if you haven't already, is that pretty quickly you will find that the advantages of working online will serve you to accelerate the growth in your business. And the most important thing that I teach in my sessions is the development of a business funnel. And so whether or not you're in traditional network marketing, internet marketing, affiliate marketing, or if you've taken that next step to develop your own information products and you're marketing those online, that all these business models are best built within the development of a business funnel. And the idea behind a business funnel is being able to create reoccurring streams of income, so multiple income streams, in an automated basis. So you leverage the power of technology and market using technology in order to help you to do that. And that's the core essence of what we talk about here every day on this show. Now, yesterday I started a new series. It's an 11-part series, and it is dealing with working with the law. And what do I mean by working with the law? There are universal laws. One great one to mention would be gravity, for instance. I don't care whether or not you believe in gravity, but I guarantee you, if you jump off the side of a 20-story building, the result is going to be pretty definitive. And gravity is an undeniable law. Well, there are other laws that exist in the universe as well. And what we're going to be doing over the next, actually 11 sessions, with one little interruption that I'll talk about here in just a moment, is we're going to be really dealing with how to work with these laws. And what I've done is, over the last week or so, have been studying in depth a book by Raymond Hollowell that's called Working with the Law. And the way that I discovered that book was through a training program that I purchased and I've been going through by Bob Proctor and Mary Morrissey, called The 11 Forgotten Laws. And one of the beautiful things about blogging and being able to share content with readers, and for those of you that follow my podcast or my video cast, is that as I'm on my own journey, because personal development and self-development and learning new skills is an ongoing endeavor, and I'm definitely a committed lifelong student. I'm committed to learning in a lifelong way and in a very purposeful way. Is when I find something that really creates tremendous value, it's great to be able to immediately bring this to you and share it with you. So if you want to know more about that, in terms of the course or that specific book, if you go to my blog at www.askjamesholmes.com and look at the show summary from this episode, which will be up here shortly after the show, or yesterday's episode, which was on the law of thinking, then you'll be able to click on a link where there's a special where I purchased the course from and got it for a 66% discount. So it's a digital downloaded version, 12 audio CDs by MP3, 2 ebooks, both the book, Working with the Law, and then also a workbook for the course, and then a number of additional bonuses. And I'll have that link there for you. So you can just click on that link and take a look at it and decide if it's something that's right for you or not. But if anything that we're talking about, in this whole series of lessons resonates with you, then I'd encourage you to take a serious look at the course. It's very inexpensive. Like I said, it's a huge discount, and it really, I've been really impressed by what I've learned. And I thought I knew a lot about some of these laws already, but I find that there is so much more to learn, and then to apply to business and to be able to see immediate results from the application of this. And I can testify to that in just the week or so that I've been working through this material. So I really would encourage it. And so it's inspired me to do 11-part series on this. So before we get into the content for today, I want to remind you that on Friday, this Friday, I'm going to have a very special program. It's going to be an hour and a half is the scheduled time block. An hour of that, the first hour, is going to be a very rare interview with a gentleman by the name of Rob Hanley. And the reason I say it's rare is Rob is a founder of Net Millionaire Buzz radio show, amongst a number of different things. He's a very successful internet entrepreneur, has interviewed in his programs some of the biggest leaders in internet marketing and network marketing and personal development, and has had them as guests on his radio show. And the reason I say it's a rare interview is that usually Rob is on the other side of the microphone. And so it's not often that you would, and in fact, I'm not aware that I've seen any interview with Rob that was an interview done with him about him. Now, there may be one out there, I've not seen it. And so it's going to be neat to be able to spend an hour with him, specifically talking about internet marketing, talking about developing internet revenue businesses and how he's developed his businesses, in addition to personal development. And we're going to get into a number of different subjects that I know you'll find helpful in terms of your own journey in developing your business. He's also the creator of Your Net Biz Blueprint, and also a number of other online business systems. So that's on Friday. So I want to encourage you to be a part of that program as well. And again, that'll be the normal time, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time for an hour. Then I'm going to leave a half hour after that for just open discussion. If you want to call and ask and talk about anything related to internet marketing, network marketing, affiliate marketing, then that'll be the time to do that. So yesterday we talked about working with the law of thinking. And I gave you at the end of the program some basic concepts that you could apply to your business immediately in taking advantage of knowledge of the law of thinking and to grow your business. And I want to recap those for you, and then we're going to get into today's lesson. So I said, yesterday at the conclusion of our lesson about the law of thinking that there were 4 basically action steps that I wanted to encourage you to take advantage of. One was to create a series of objectives for your business. Now, I don't use the word goal purposely. I think goals are great, and I've been someone that's made written goals my entire life. But in my understanding of the way the mind works, particularly the subconscious mind, I have found that really what works better than goals, which I really align closely with dreams, which are important and should certainly be part of the foundation of your thought process, is the idea of objectives. Because objectives, to me, there's a lot more of immediacy of action around the idea of an objective. And so when you sit down and think about your business and think about what you want to achieve on a personal level, number one, it's important to be really clear, which you talked about yesterday, and it's important to ask for what you want. And so in setting about an objective, I think it will put you in a posture where you are going to be a lot more purposeful in moving towards the completion of it, because it isn't like this thing that's a goal or a dream that's out there in some distant place that you may aspire to but may not really commit to. An objective is something quite different. When you hear the word objective, I think it's a much stronger term. So I use that on purpose. But to create a series of objectives around your business, so to sit down with a piece of paper and really, nail down what it is you want to accomplish and really know your numbers. In any business, there are metrics in a business. And however you want to measure it, is it a number of visitors you want to drive to a particular website? Is it a percentage of conversions that you want once those visitors have arrived? Is that conversion tied to a sale? And if so, how many sales is your objective to make in a given day, week, or month? If it's a revenue target, then what is that revenue target? And then back into that number, knowing what's required to achieve it. So if you sat here and said to me today, if we were sitting across the table from one another, that your objective was to make $10,000 a month in this particular stream in your business, then the next thing would be, well, what does it take to do that? And if you're in a network marketing business, then what does that mean in terms of recruitment or volume created? If you're an affiliate marketer, which products or services are you going to be marketing this month? And then what is the commission per sale? So how many sales do you need to achieve that particular income target? And it works for information products if you're marketing your own products or direct sales. It's all about knowing what the numbers are. and then tying those to your objective. If your objective relates to time, then exactly what is it that you're looking to achieve in terms of time freedom? And what do those dates look like? Go ahead and pull out your calendar and mark those off and say, these are the dates that I have an objective set, that I'm creating more time freedom for myself, and these are the times that I'm blocking to apply towards whatever I want them to apply to. It relates to your time freedom goal. So that's what I mean by objectives. That's number one. Number two is writing them down, and then this is really important, placing the written set of objectives in some place that's very prominent. So if you have a sticky note, and you can place them on your computer screen as an example, or if you want to place them on your mirror, so every morning when you're washing your face or shaving or brushing your teeth, that you're just reminded that in that day you've got a set of objectives that you're working towards, and let those be a trigger for you to get you focused back on what you're wanting to accomplish in that day. It can be something that's created and put forth on a vision board, which is actually number 3, is creating a vision board. And I've talked in the past about how to do that. I've shared with you my story that what occurred to me back in the mid-90s when I'd gone through some challenging periods of time and was really in a lot of ways starting over in certain areas of my life, and created this dynamic vision board that I still keep because it just reminds me of how effective that exercise really was. And all it was, there's no magic necessarily behind it. It's just putting out in a visual way. So whether it's on a poster board or a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper, or you use a program and create a screensaver that is your vision board, however you want to do it, it's up to you. The important thing is that you create images and words and phrases that are consistent with what it is you're wanting to achieve, and that you place that somewhere where you see it every day, so it serves as a reminder to you to kind of throw that switch on and keep you focused on the task and the reason why. Now, we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about the importance under the law of thinking to make sure that your decisions have an emotional tie to them. And the idea there is that if you make a decision and it's just an intellectual decision, almost like I would like to have something, like let's say, again, money's easy to measure, so let's just use the money goal. And let's just say that you make a decision that you want to achieve, again, $10,000 in one of your income streams in a given month, and you want that to be your monthly recurring income, is that $10,000 number. That's a nice objective to have, but just the intellectual acknowledgement of that goal or that objective may not be enough to pull you through difficult times in your business. So if you go through, like everyone does, peaks and valleys in your business, let's say you're going through a period of time where you're just not making any sales, the intellectual decision that you want to achieve a $10,000 a month income may not be enough to have you have the internal fortitude to continue moving forward and to continue to work towards your objective. If you can tie that to something emotional, like let's say that $10,000 buys you the ability to take care of an aging parent, or that $10,000 buys you the freedom to be able to send your kids to college, or to buy that vacation home that you and your spouse have been dreaming about, or to eliminate debt, or whatever it is. If you can find an emotional tie to the objective you set for yourself, then you're more likely to really be able to use that as an anchor and to be able to pull through any challenges you face and to be able to break through and achieve the objective. So putting that down on paper, and even better, creating a vision board and placing that somewhere prominently, will help you increase your chances of achieving that goal or that objective. The fourth thing you want to do is fight for your focus. Now, we live in a world in this day and age where there's so much information coming in day by day. Even like this particular broadcast today, you have the option of listening to it on my podcast, which many of you are doing. You also have the option right now of going over to my Ustream channel and watching this by video, because I'm simulcasting this, simulcasting it. So I'm producing this one time and putting it out through two different methods of viewership and or listenership. Or you can simply, in 30 minutes, log on to my blog and you'll find the recording of the video and a summary post put in on the same topic. So my point is that there are many, many ways that we receive information, and we're being bombarded by information constantly. This is one great example. But this example is replicated continually throughout your day. If you think about it, the information is endless. So how do you fight for your focus to be able to remain clearly focused on your objective and to continue marching towards achieving it? And so what I want to say to you is just announce to you that it is a fight, that you do have to really be purposeful about remaining focused on what you're looking to accomplish. So create the objectives, be clear about them, write them down, create the vision board or some visual method of reminding yourself of what it is you're setting out to do. And then number 4 was fighting for your focus. So that's a summary from yesterday. So today we're going to talk about another law, which is the law of supply. And I love this one because this is one that I always have believed in, even before I knew what it was. And what I mean by that, and I'll give you the example from my prior career, which was in real estate and mortgage banking. And I'm going to use mortgage banking as the example today. There were always times in my mortgage banking career, regardless of where the market was. So, there were periods of time where interest rates were high. There were periods of time when interest rates were low. There were times when people were doing refinances. There were times when people weren't refinancing. There were periods of time where the home purchase market was strong, and there were times when the home purchase market was weak. And I always had peers in my profession that would allow the market, or what they perceived to be the market conditions, to dictate their business. So if they were focused on refinances and that was their business model, and they perceived that people were not refinancing, they would have just terrible periods of time, where their income just wasn't there, they weren't closing deals. A lot of people, regardless of what their particular niche was, in November and December would have terrible months because they made the assumption that, and they would say to me, that nobody, does a deal during the holidays, that nobody's, working in during the Thanksgiving holiday, the Jewish holidays, Christmas, and New Year's. And so they would literally set themselves up every year to have really low income in November and December. By contrast, November and December were my 2 best months consistently throughout my entire career. The reason for that was I knew that the majority of people that were my competitors, let's say in the marketplace, were taking time off because they were presuming that there was no one out there that was going to want to buy their products or services. In this case, it was mortgages. I felt just the opposite. I didn't recognize that it had anything to do with the law of supply, but I knew that there were people that were, off from work and taking time off and really tending to their personal needs. And so I felt as though there was an ample supply. In fact, there was an oversupply of people that wanted what I had to offer. So my objective was to figure out the marketing message to reach as many of those people as I could. And I was pretty darn good at it. And so I always had great, months of November and December in my mortgage banking business. Well, the same thing applies in your home-based business. I don't care if you're an internet marketer that is putting up websites and blogs and needing to attract traffic and visitors to look at your offer for whatever it is you're promoting on the internet. Or if you're a network marketer that's recruiting for your network marketing business. There are more people by a factor multiplied of probably 1 million or more that need and want and are looking for exactly what it is you have to offer. They're already there. And what you have to do is recognize that the law of supply calls for that. And all you have to do is make a mental shift and an emotional shift to find yourself in a place on the same frequency as those people that are looking for what you have to offer. I live in a city, Denver, Colorado, that has nearly 5 million people in terms of its population. And if I look at within my business funnel, I have a primary network marketing business that I promote. And I have a primary direct sale, big ticket business that I promote. And I am clear. It doesn't mean that I always act on this because, I'm, like all of us, we're human. And sometimes what we know and what we do are 2 different things. But I am very clear that the people that I need to successfully grow my network marketing business are already here in Denver, Colorado. There are 5 million people. And how many people do I need to accomplish my goal in my network marketing business? So it's not a supply problem. But the news even gets better, that because of the idea of using the internet, using social media, using websites and blogs and understanding SEO, I can actually tap into a global marketplace where there are millions and millions and millions of people, if not billions, in terms of population. And of that, there are certainly millions that are looking to improve their lives. And of that, there are certainly tens of thousands that might be interested in the niche that I'm in. And of those tens and thousands of people, there are certainly thousands of people that are interested in the specific company that I promote. And of those thousands that are interested in my company, there are certainly hundreds, if not 1,000 or more, that I can personally touch between now and the end of the year, and in a very high quality way expose them to the opportunity. And of those hundreds or 1,000 people that would look at the opportunity, there's certainly a percentage, and maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 15%, I don't know what that number is, that will say yes. And it's true for you as well. It isn't because of me, it's because it's the fact of numbers. There's a ample supply. If I look at my direct sales business, there are certainly tens of thousands of professionals that are looking for an opportunity in a more traditional business model that would say yes to my direct sale. So what it is in terms of my challenge is, again, figuring out how to get my message to match the market. It's not a supply problem. So if you ever find yourself as you're building your business, feeling like, or even verbalizing, that there just isn't anyone out there that you can contact and talk to, or nobody is out there to look at your websites, or no one's out there for you to set up a one-on-one direct meeting with, that you're missing the law of supply in a very big way. Even if you think of things that didn't previously exist, and I'm thinking of things like the Wright brothers when they set out to create an aeroplane, or you think about the engineers of the mines that were at work when the personal computer was developed, or anything that doesn't exist, any new invention, the automobile, the first person to develop the automobile, Thomas Edison, creating the incandescent light bulb. Any invention that took place, and any invention of which there will be many, many more, obviously, that'll come in the future, the means of that already exist. In other words, the supply of the materials and the science and the universal laws that are necessary for those things to be invented already exist. All that material is waiting for is the person to have the idea. Okay, so back to the law of thinking, to have the thought, and I said yesterday that thoughts become things. So the thought of creating a concept and gathering together the materials and going through the experiments and developing the idea and creating the concept in a material way that results in it being a new invention. And then once that new invention finds a market, we then have something brand new that we have available to us. So whether that's an airplane, an automobile, a light bulb, a computer, and who knows what it will be in the future. The supply of what's required to bring it to pass, the supply, just like in your business, the customers, the prospects that you need are already out there. I promise you, every person you need to build your business, online or offline, has already been born. They're already out there in the world. They're out there looking today, many of them. Some of them don't know yet that they need what you have to offer, but they're already out there. The supply is there. There's no shortage of supply. All there is for you to have the thought and then to figure out how to get your message to that market. So what I want to impress upon you today is the idea that there is no lack of leads. There is no lack of prospects. There's no lack of individuals that are interested in buying what you have to sell, or enrolling in your team, or engaging in the work that you have to do. The supply is out there. It's just for you to make the mental shift, the mindset shift, to understand that it exists. So I want to share with you a story. I'm going to read you a story because I just found this to be really pretty fascinating. It's a simple story, but it's just, to me anyway, it illustrated a point so clearly, because I know I've been in this position in my own life. Have you ever had a time in your life where you kind of have that moment where you say, I wish I'd have thought of that, or I wish I would have seen that and taken action on that. Well, this is a story that's like this. And this is from the book that I talked about at the very beginning of today's program from Hollywell's Working with the Law. And so I'm going to read this story to you. So the way this goes is that there was a man who lived outside of Pittsburgh and operated a small dairy farm. Day in and day out, he worked laboriously, earned a meager living for himself and his family. One day, several men who had been surveying some adjacent land walked across the pasture land, and when they were crossing a stream of water that ran through the field, the farmer noticed them stopping. Stooping down, studying the slime and scum that had collected against the crude footbridge he had laid there. But one man had scooped up some water in his hand and apparently drank it. Another collected some water in a canteen he carried attached to the buckle of his belt. The farmer was puzzled and wondered why anyone would be interested in that stuff. Even the cattle had no taste for it, for they pushed the scum aside and drank the clear water. Some weeks later, a man called and offered him a fabulous price for the farm. Why, this man must be crazy, the farmer thought. He could never get his investment back by farming that ground. He had not tried it for years. He was joyful at the prospects of getting such value and readily sold the farm. He moved to Canada to be near his brother and bought another farm. It wasn't long, however, until some queer contraptions were set up on the field, and word spread like wildfire that they had found oil. In a few years, that farm of less than 100 acres produced millions of dollars in oil for its owners. The farmer remained poor and worked hard because he knew only how to scratch the surface and till the soil. Nature had supplied an abundance for the man, but he could only realize a scanty portion. He could see the farm only as acres of stones and dirt. And therein lies the challenge for you today. Here's a man that was sitting on his prosperity, sitting on his abundance. If only he had the thought and then put action to that thought and was able to recognize, even when it was in some ways unintentionally pointed out to him, that everything he needed, the supply that he needed to create whatever it was he set out to create in his life, was there in that field. And he didn't take it. So that's the lesson of today, is that there is an ample supply of whatever it is you need for your business, whether it's capital, whether it's resources, whether it's people, prospects, team members, volume for your business, traffic for your website. So whatever it is, it's already out there. It already exists. And all that is required is for you to bring to it the thought. And then once you find that thought, however you come across it, whether it's something you read, a training that you take, something you hear, advice you're given from your mentor, something you discover in a mastermind session, whatever your process is for being enlightened to the thought, then the idea is to take action. And when you take action, you connect with the supply, and then whatever it is you need to grow your business will be there for you. And like I say, I can tell you from personal experience that it works. Tomorrow we're going to move on. We'll talk about another of the laws. And then on Friday, I want to remind you once again that we're going to have Rob Hanley here as a special guest for a 1-hour interview. And if there's time available, we'll allow you to ask some questions of your own. So bring your questions. Anything about internet marketing or personal development. It'll be a powerful program. If you want to connect with me on a personal basis, I want to invite you to go to my blog, which is at www.askjamesholmes.com. You'll notice along the right-hand column, there is a section there where it says, click here to schedule a complimentary consultation. And if you click the Book Now button, you'll be taken to my online calendar. If you schedule a time slot, I'll call you at the appointed time and we'll spend 30 minutes in a complimentary consultation talking about you, your dreams, your objectives for your business, your biggest challenges, and what we can do to help you achieve what it is you're setting out to achieve. I appreciate you being with me. This has been James Holmes, your host. And until tomorrow, I wish for you much prosperity in your business and life, and that you have indeed a very blessed day. Thank you for being with me. We'll be with you again tomorrow.